Hello and welcome to Arsenal Domination and Gooner Gathering, where in this video I discuss whether anybody can challenge the current Premier League holders, Arsenal, for the league this season. Um, Arsenal, in many people's minds, have had a difficult summer this window. I think the expectations were that Arsenal were going to go out and make significant major signings. I think akin to sort of what Liverpool did last year on the back of their Premier League success, because Mikel Arteta said that he wanted the club to show ambition and build on that. And I think there is some truth to that, expectations for what Arsenal wanted to do in the window were probably higher than what they have achieved to date. But I've always said that this is a window where things will happen late in the window because of the World Cup, and that Arsenal shouldn't panic by just because of those expectations. And Arsenal still have a lot of good players, and they really only should add players that they think add the value to it. And I think this is true of many other clubs as well. I think when you look across the transfer market, there will be many signings for lots of clubs between now and the end of the window. But the Premier League is about to start, and Arsenal right now are many people's favourites. So the question is, should Arsenal be the favourites? Are they ready for the season? And who, if anybody, can challenge Arsenal for the Premier League? So in this video, I'm going to sort of take a look at the runners and riders and let you know how I think it's going to go for them this season. So let's start with Arsenal very, very quickly. This is an Arsenal channel, or both channels are Arsenal channels after all. And Arsenal, as I say, the expectation was sky high for us this window, but Arsenal have quietly gone about doing some business, and I expect, as I say, they will do more. Right now, Arsenal, in terms of incoming, to sign Christian Zolis, the left winger, who has had a fantastic pre-season. Looks like he operates really well in space, gets his head up, does the simple things really, really well, and finishes superbly. We saw that in the Community Shield, an extension of his pre-season form. They've added Bruno Guimaraes into the central midfield, and I think Arsenal arguably have one of the best central midfields in the world. And in terms of depth, I think Manchester City at their peak couldn't really necessarily rival this, but right now in world football, Paris Saint-Germain, Real Madrid, possibly Barcelona may well feel they have a similar midfield of the quality of Arsenal. And Bruno Guimaraes adds that ability to sit as a six, to be slightly more advanced. And I think him operating a double pivot with Declan Rice or Miles Lewis-Skelly gives Arsenal lots of options in that midfield, as well as Martin Zubimendi and Mikel Moreno. And he will, again, looks a fantastic addition. They've added Meslier, the third choice goalkeeper coming in, who may well rival Kepa for the after his pre-season for that second choice spot, but that allows Tommy Setford to go out on loan. And of course, yesterday it was announced that Arsenal had agreed a deal for Ezri Konsa. At the time of recording, he's not been signed, but he may well be signed by the time you see this video. And Arsenal, I think, would be expecting to do much more work. But even if they don't, and they just get the outgoings of the fringe players like Vieira, Nelson, and Gabriel Jesus, they still have a lot of depth across that squad. That defence was elite last season. And even with injuries to Saliba and Gabriel, I think it can still be very, very strong this season. The midfield, as I mentioned, has improved in quality. Miles Lewis-Skelly emergence in that midfield role really, really helping too. And in attack, as I say, I expect more additions to be added, but we've got to fit Kai Havertz. Martin Odegaard looks like he's refound his form. And you'd expect Gyökeres and Eze to be better than they were last season. Hopefully Madueke can still provide some depth, and he can be better this season than last season. I think Arsenal are in a really, really good place, but if they were to add to that one, maybe two players, if someone like Gabby Martinelli were to go out, I think that is a squad that may not be the best the Premier League has ever had, but is certainly, for me, in the strongest place in the Premier League. It has a consistent manager. It has a consistent base. And I think it is one that, for the first time in Arsenal's history, could see the side go back to back in the league. And for me, I think they are the favourites for the league. But if they were to slip up at all, who could challenge them? Manchester City, of course, are the side that have dominated the Premier League in recent seasons. Pep Guardiola was absolutely outstanding, and Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool, I think, were just as good as them at times, but couldn't get past them as often as maybe the team that Klopp built deserved to do, because of the excellence of Guardiola and that Manchester City side. Now, obviously, you can question how that team was built in the early days. And that is obviously under investigation still. But that City side is fantastic. But it has had a very, very difficult summer. I mean, people are questioning Arsenal summer. I think there have to be questions about City's summer. They have spent, they could, by the end of this window, spend close to £1 billion in the last 2 years and have arguably got a weaker side. Defensively last season, I thought they had a soft underbelly. Mark Guehi's arrival, I think, helped with that, as well as the return of Rodri. But they have lost the best backup goalkeeper in the league in James Trafford, replaced him with Gianni Rulli, the Argentine veteran goalkeeper. I think a sensible pickup, but not of the same quality of Trafford. I think their defence will be better in terms of the starting partnership this year if they can keep them fit, because I think there will be some chemistry between Guehi and Kushnov or Diaz. I think that can build quickly. I think they will have a two they will stick to. But they have lost a lot of depth there. They've lost John Stones on the free. They've lost Manuel Akanji. I think Nathan Ake has also gone as well. You question whether Rico Lewis is going to be good enough at right back. You can question whether Nunes is good enough at right back. And we don't really know if they're going to play a back three or a back four either this season. And they look defensively ropey. Ahead of that, they have lost that midfield. And I think this could be the undoing of City this season. Rodri has gone. Bernardo Silva has gone. Nico Gonzalez being linked with a move out. Reinders has gone, and they look very short in that area. Now, they've added Elliot Anderson at 116 million. I think he's a very good Premier League player, but he didn't look it at the weekend, albeit it was his first one back after the World Cup. They might add Rouadi. Even if they add Enzo Fernandez, that is a whole new midfield that they have in there. They will need time to gel. They need to work out how they're going to protect the defence. And they haven't necessarily improved in attack. Even if Savio went out and, say, someone like Neto came in, which is being linked, I'm not sure that attack in terms of depth is elite behind Erling Haaland. Coupled with the fact that you've lost the aura of Pep, I think there was genuine questions really about how good that side is going to be. But it is still City. It is still a good side. But they have those defensive questions to answer, as well as whether that attack can keep mustering what it has done in recent years. You'd have thought Foden would be better. We know Haaland will continue to score. But if that midfield isn't capable of controlling games and enabling City to get that ball to Erling Haaland, it could mollify them. And they may well find, and I think this will be true of many teams this season, a difficult start to the season post-World Cup, and while they settle in these transfers and get that team gelling. And right now, I do think they are a way off Arsenal. Another team really that have historically troubled the top of the league in recent years is Liverpool. They had a horrific season last year. It's arguably one of the worst defences of the Premier League title in a while. I think Jose Mourinho's Chelsea that finished 12th. It is one, but that was Jose Mourinho sort of being Jose Mourinho, and the atmosphere all went wrong there. You could have a look at Manchester United after Ferguson left. But again, that was massive disruption to the side. Last year, the disruption at Liverpool was self-inflicted. Slot changed the entire way that Liverpool played. He brought in nearly £500 million worth of players, and they were all in similar positions, all competing for each other. And this balance was wrong. I said it last summer, and people laughed when I said it's a FIFA window. They just bought players for their names. They haven't thought about how it all fits together. They bought two starting strikers, Nketiah and Isak. They're both going to want to play. They bought wingers that are going to want to play. And they didn't do anything really about their defensive midfield. And I think that in some ways is true of them again this summer. If you look at Liverpool, and I'm just flicking down to see their sort of signings here, they bought in Munoz and they bought in Ronald Araujo. And that is it. There is nothing else really coming in there for Liverpool. And I think that their issues at 6 are still there. Their issues at right back and centre back, you could argue Ronald Araujo will help with that, but he is injury prone. Joe Gomez is injury prone. They've lost Konate. Bradley is coming back off a serious injury. I think there are genuine questions to be asked about that Liverpool side and whether it can find a balance. That said, though, if they do keep everyone fit and they haven't got Champions League football, they've got Europa League football, it will increase their travel and they will have to play Sunday, but the intensity is less. And they can certainly rotate heavily to get through the group stages, one would have thought. But I do expect their attack to be better. Salah fell off a cliff last season, but I think the emergence of Rio will help. I think they will have a more settled attack, knowing who's a starting striker. I think Florian Wirtz will be better. I think Isak you'd have thought would be better. But I do think they lack depth to make a sustained challenge for the Premier League title. And they also have a manager in Iraola who I think is very, very good, but is not experienced at this level. So I think, again, there are issues there. And I think they could well be a way off. And I think they've got a more stable base in City, but I'm not sure they've got necessarily that sort of depth still to challenge Arsenal in a similar way to City. Manchester United then. Manchester United had a great 2026 under Michael Carrick. They flew up the table, but they were playing one game a week, and they have a good starting 11. It's not an elite starting 11. It's not as good as Arsenal's or City's, but when you're able to play it every week and they're fresh and you can work on tactics for the game, it gives you a big advantage. And that saw them rise up the table, and they deserve Champions League football for their form in 2026. But this is a new challenge for them now. They will have Europe. You wouldn't have thought they're going out in the cup games immediately. And they also have work to do. But last summer, they rebuilt their attack really, really nicely. The likes of Mbeumo, Cunha, the striker whose name escapes me that was linked with Arsenal, came in. And they all really worked together. And Carrick found a way to make that work. This summer, they've gone with rebuilding that midfield, and it needed it. Casemiro's legs are pretty much gone, and they brought in Santos, they brought in Tielemans, and it looks like they're going to bring in Carlos Baleba. I think that means that they have the legs in midfield, and I think they will have far more control in that midfield. They still have players like Mainu and who I think has played a part. Someone like Mount can be a decent option off the bench, and they have Bruno Fernandes, who had a career season last season. But the depth outside that midfield, even in attack, I think is missing. And you'd question the defensive line's ability, and you'd question the depth there. And with more games a season, how will Michael Carrick fare? And I think the answer is they will not be able to do what they did last season. And I think they will be challenging for the Champions League, but will struggle, in my view, because of the extra games and the lack of depth to challenge for the league. They are going in the right direction, however. I see similarities between what they're doing at Manchester United and what Mikel Arteta did at Arsenal. And I think if Michael Carrick proves to be the right manager there, and I think the jury is still out there, but I think he deserves a good chance. And I think he's an underrated manager in many ways. But if they get that right, I could see them challenging in a few years' time. But like Arsenal, they're going to need 2 or 3 years still to build the squad depth they need to challenge on all fronts, particularly when they are competing in Europe. And for them, if they're able to get back in the Champions League, that would really, really help them. So they were the main challengers last year. There was arguably Aston Villa, but I think Aston Villa are going to have a really difficult season. They may well still stay in 7th or 8th just because of the quality of other teams. Teams like Brighton and Bournemouth have Europe for the first time. We saw the effect that had on Crystal Palace last season when they had to play in Europe. So I think there are those sorts of things there. But Villa have lost Tielemans. They look like they've lost Watkins. They've lost Konza. They've lost Morgan Rogers, and they haven't really been able to bring in the players that they might well have liked to replace him. They brought in Nohan Manzini. He looks a good player. They brought in a new goalkeeper, but that's to replace Martinez, who may or may not leave. And they brought in Matteo Ruggeri. It's not enough to replace what they've lost. They've also lost Luca Digne as well. And, even someone like Daniel Marlon, who didn't work very well, and they got a decent fee in, offered good depth, and they are also going to have Europe. I don't think they're going to be anywhere near this season, but I do think Chelsea could be. I thought initially that Manchester United, City would be the closest challengers, but given their exits, even with their incomings, the disruption could be so huge on a sort of level similar to Liverpool's last year. But I think quietly Chelsea could be the closest challengers. Xabi Alonso obviously knows the Premier League well as a player, but not as a manager. But he is a good manager. He showed that at Leverkusen, and he actually didn't do a bad job at Real Madrid. The players just decided they weren't going to sort of work for him. And quietly, I think Chelsea have done very well. They had a decent first 11. Their problem was interference meant that they rotated so heavily that no one knew where they were playing. They didn't get any chemistry, and they didn't get any rhythm last season. It was still going well, though, until Maresca left in December, January time, at which point their season imploded. When he left, they were 3rd, 4th in the league, in contention for the league and going well. And this summer, they've added experience in the form of Jordan Henderson and Danny Welbeck. Now, we can laugh at that, but they don't necessarily need to play that much. There is no Europe for them this season. We saw the effect it had on Manchester United, and their experience of knowing how to win big games, being at big clubs, winning trophies is going to be quite significant. behind the season, a similar way it was at Arsenal for like the likes of Christian Norgard or Jorginho in recent seasons. Added to that, I think they've added Palestra quite nicely. He's a downgrade on Cucurella, but he could be a nice pickup there. They've added Lacroix. He will come in and start alongside Colwell, and that settled down that central defensive position. They've added Morgan Rogers. Him and Cole Palmer could be a very dangerous pairing behind João Pedro. And they will be able to play the same team every single week. Now, they may well, Palestra will play right back, I think. Sorry, he will sort of be the cover for James. I meant Pep Shavara, he will come in and be that left back. Apologies there. That was my mistake, just correcting that. I still think, though, Chelsea, 1 or 2 injuries could do for them. I still think we could see Enzo Fernando leave. And I think, while we all laugh at him and say we don't like him, he is still a very important cog for Chelsea. And his experience as well could be crucial. But with 1 game a week, a good manager and a good 11 with some experience added there, I think Chelsea are a better side than they were last season. And I think they will be Arsenal's closest challengers. I do want to just mention our arch rivals Tottenham very quickly. They've again had a decent summer. Their injuries in the last 2 seasons, I think, are part of why they finished 17th, as well as just the chemistry at the club and what have you. They still have big problems, but again, I think they bought very well this season. I expect them to be up there challenging for the Europa League, possibly even a shout for the Champions League, but my gut feel is Europa League. So, just going back and then having sort of gone through the runners and riders, I still think Arsenal are favourites of this league, and I think Arsenal will win the league. I think Chelsea will come second, and I think they'll be about 7 points behind Arsenal at the close. Man City third. I'm going to go Liverpool fourth, Man United fifth, Tottenham sixth. That's how I see the table unfolding. Let me know what you think, though, on the season. Let me know if you think I've overestimated or underestimated any of those teams. And let me know what you think the top 6 are in the comments. I'd be really interested to read and see what you think about it. But in the meantime, I'll be back with a Coventry preview tomorrow. There'll be much more content coming up on Lee's channel as well for those watching on Gooner Gathering. If you are not liked and subscribed to my channel or Lee's, please do go and check out the other video and give us a subscribe. We're trying to build a sort of a sensible community here, sort of talking analytically and as fairly as we can about the side we all love. But with any luck, Arsenal will kick off the season on Friday night with a win against Coventry, and we'll end up Premier League champions. Me or Lee, we'll see you soon. Have a great rest of your day. And as always, up.